1 second left. Clippers by 2. The defending champions have fallen.
The point guard position is one of the most important positions in the game of basketball. This is the tone setter, the facilitator, a player who's supposed to be an on-court extension of the coach. And while the definition of the point guard position has been contested in recent NBA history, we're not really here to talk about that. What we are here to talk about is Chris Paul. Because in the position, including the likes of a Magic Johnson, Stephen Curry, Isaiah Thomas, John Stockton, Steve Nash, and many others, today, I will make a case that Chris Paul is the most talented point guard in the history of the game. But before we get going, a quick word from our sponsors over at Skillshare. Skillshare offers thousands of inspiring classes for creative and curious people on topics including illustration, design, photography, video, freelancing, and many more. A class that I've been genuinely taking on my own time is this class right here. This class is called Construct a Story, Advanced Storytelling by Daniel Gonzalez, who is, by the way, an animator at Disney. The one thing he emphasizes right away in the beginning of his course is that you can have all the effects in the world, but if the story you want to tell isn't even a good story, is it even a good video? And that is a point that really resonated with me while taking this class, and that is an idea that I want to carry out throughout the videos that you guys see on this channel. On Skillshare, there's no ads, they're always putting up new classes, so if you are a creative who likes to learn, then Skillshare is perfect for you, and it's less than $10 a month with an annual subscription, which is not bad at all. The first 1,000 of my subscribers to click the link in the description will get a free trial of Skillshare's premium membership. Thank you to Skillshare for sponsoring this video, but with that being said, let's talk about Chris Paul. So before we can make any claims about Chris Paul like I'm doing in this video, we first need to get a good grasp of exactly who Chris Paul is as a basketball player and what type of career he's had so far. Chris Paul was the 4th overall pick of the 2005 NBA draft, where he was drafted by the New Orleans Hornets. In his 16-year career that is still ongoing, he has played for the New Orleans Hornets, the Los Angeles Clippers, the Houston Rockets, the Oklahoma City Thunder, and now plays for the Phoenix Suns. He has played over 1,000 games in his career, and as of the recording of this video has garnered 18,923 points, 9,711 assists, 4,654 rebounds, and 2,238 steals, with averages of 18.4 points, 9.5 assists, 4.5 rebounds, and 2.2 steals on 47% shooting from the field, 37% from 3, and 87% from the free throw line. As far as accolades, he is a 10-time All-Star, has 9 All-NBA selections, 9 All-Defensive selections, a Rookie of the Year, and has led the league in assists 4 times and has led the league in steals 6 times. Now these are all solely based on the regular season, but now let's talk about Chris Paul's playoff career. Throughout Chris Paul's career, he has played 109 playoff games and has made the playoffs in 12 of the 15 full seasons he's been in the league. The only years where he didn't make it were the first 2 years of his career and the 2010 season where he played a career low 45 games in that season. In the playoffs, he has for the most part maintained the level of production he had in the regular season, and if not improved on it, as he has playoff career averages of 20.9 points, 8.3 assists, 5.2 rebounds, and 2.1 steals on very efficient 48, 37, 85 splits from the field. But now that we got the actual factuals out the way, I still haven't really explained to y'all exactly why Chris Paul is the most talented point guard of all time. What exactly qualifies Chris Paul to at least be in that conversation? Well, for one, let's talk about his skill set, because the skill set that he brings at the point guard position is arguably the most complete skill set the game has ever seen. If you ask me who is the best all-around point guard of all time, my first answer would be Chris Paul. Because aside from his sheer height and his rebounding ability, he does everything on the court at an above to well above average level. In terms of scoring, he's going to give you a very efficient 18 to 22 points a night with the capability of dropping way more than that. He's an efficient finisher at the rim, has one of the deadliest mid-range games of all time. He shoots efficiently from 3 on high enough volume for me to say he's a good 3-point shooter, and shoots in the high 80s and low 90s from the free throw line. He's capable of grabbing you 4 to 5 rebounds a night, and defensively, despite his height, has proven to be one of the best defenders in his position. And you can point to the 9 all-defensive selections, 7 of them being on the first team, along with the fact that he led the league in steals 6 times. Yes, 6 times. No one has led the league in steals that many seasons, and there are only 4 other players who come close, and those 4 other players have only led the league in steals 3 times. That's half of what Chris Paul has. He also has some of the best handles this league has ever seen. I mean, just look at this, and this, and this. And I haven't even talked about his best ability yet, and that is his playmaking and facilitating ability, as his 9.5 assists per game average puts him effectively tied for 3rd all-time with Oscar Robertson. But what makes it even more impressive is his assist to turnover ratio. Now, the stat itself is pretty self-explanatory, taking into account how many assists a player gets every 1 turnover. But this is a stat that tries to contextualize assists just a little bit more. For example, in the 2018 season, DeMarcus Cousins averaged 5.4 assists a game, which is pretty good for a center, right? But then you take into account that he was also turning the ball over 5 times a game, and then you start to realize that the 5.4 assists a game he averages a game isn't as impressive as it sounds. Now, on the flip side, this is a stat that better contextualizes how good of a facilitator Chris Paul is compared to the field, as comparing him to the top 15 and the leaders for assists per game and total assists all time. Chris Paul's assist to turnover ratio of 3.92 only ranks second to Muggsy Bogues' 4.69. And while I know assists can be a flawed stat, when you're top 6 in total career assists and top 4 in assists per game and have the 2nd highest assist to turnover ratio of all time, and you pass the eye test as well, there really isn't any reason to not say that Chris Paul is one of the best facilitators of all time. So just in terms of skill set, we are talking about a point guard who can efficiently score, can rebound a little bit, is one of the best defenders in this position, and is one of the best passers of all time. But what really motivated me to do this video is not just the number side of things. Because to me, on top of the crazy numbers I just spewed out, what makes Chris Paul the most talented point guard to me is the vast amount of situations and scenarios he's been put in his career and how much he succeeded in those scenarios. Let's take it all the way back to New Orleans. In his days in New Orleans, he was asked to be a floor raiser and to be the #1 and main focal point of an offense, and he led the Hornets to the playoffs in 3 of his last 4 seasons there, including the 2008 season when he led them to 56 wins in the tough Western Conference, a season in which some people still argue to this day should have been a season where Chris Paul won MVP. And then he gets traded to the Clippers, where he is asked to lead a very talented squad and raise them to be one of the best teams in the West, and he was able to do so, as he led the Clippers to a 51 season every single year he was there, and was one of the best teams in the Western Conference in his tenure as a Clipper. Now, they never made it to the conference finals, but in many of those series, Chris Paul actually did play well, and as Dom 2K covered in this video. And then we get into his time with the Houston Rockets, where he is asked not only to just be a clear second option, but as a ball-dominant player himself, to play alongside another ball-dominant player, and one of the most ball-dominant players of all time in James Harden. And Chris Paul was talented enough to succeed in that role, as in 2018 he was the 2nd biggest part in the Houston Rockets being able to win 65 games that season, make it all the way to the Western Conference Finals, and arguably would have made the NBA Finals if Chris Paul himself didn't get injured. Now, admittedly, if there was one off year in Chris Paul's career, it would be 2019, but after this season, he would get traded to the Oklahoma City Thunder for Russell Westbrook, where in this role, he was asked to raise the floor of the team, be a veteran leader, and play in a system that includes 3 guards in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Dennis Schroeder, and himself, all while being in his 15th year in the league as a 34-year-old, and Chris Paul excelled in this scenario as well and made his first All-Star appearance in 4 years and reinserted himself in the conversation as a top 20 player in this league. And speaking of his age, that honestly doesn't get talked about enough with Chris Paul, because for the last couple of years, LeBron James has been praised so much for doing what he's doing at his age and at his point in his career. And while I'm not saying Chris Paul is doing the exact same thing, I just want you to name another player that started playing in the league when LeBron came into the league in 2003. So that means players that were drafted anywhere from 2001 to 2005 that aged just as well as Chris Paul, aside from LeBron himself. It's a very difficult task, and I would make an argument that no one has aside from LeBron James. Look, no, Chris Paul does not have the rings. He does not have the finals MVPs. He does not have the regular season MVPs that some players have. No, he's not a 6'9" point guard behemoth like Magic Johnson. No, he does not have the shooting ability and scoring ability of a Stephen Curry. No, he does not have the athleticism of a Derrick Rose. No, he doesn't have the defensive player of the year like a Gary Payton has. But when we're talking about pure talent, there is no point guard in the history of the league that is and has proven to be as well-rounded and as timeless as Chris Paul. If you guys enjoyed this video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And I'm out. Peace.